Hello and welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be shooting off an idea that was given to me from a fellow subscriber. I'm going to be sharing my picks for some streaming movies that I would love to get a physical Blu-ray release. And honestly, even if I got a DVD release, I would be happy in some of these cases. I would just love to be able to own some of these movies physically. So let's get ready. Let's jump in. So this idea was given to me by a fellow subscriber, and this was actually something I've done a bit of a pivot on previously, where I did a video on some TV shows that I would love to see get a physical release, whether it is a network, television series, or a streaming one. I did a video on that, so if you're interested, I'll try and link to it in the comments, or in the description, or in the comments down below. But this idea comes from Bloodwire Radio 4556, and they commented and said, would you ever consider doing a video on movies you are hoping will get a Blu-ray release? They had two for themselves, Out Cold and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I haven't seen either of those movies, but I like that you get to throw in some picks in there as well. So for me personally, I have a lot that I could throw on this list. I'm going to just kind of do the ones that first come to mind when I think of this. There's, like I said, several more, so I could potentially do a part 2 to this one eventually, but for the time being, let's just do these. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I have 8 movies here that I'm going to be throwing out there. So first, kicking things off, we have The Glass Onion, A Knives Out mystery. So this is one that we got the first movie as a theatrical studio released movie, which then got a subsequent Blu-ray release. But then Netflix picked up the series as films, and they're continuing through them. So it's the same cast, same creators and everything, but they are being released as streaming films. So thankfully, the movies are going to be getting theatrical releases, but we've not seen a Blu-ray release, at least officially yet, for Glass Onion. There's several bootlegs out there that I've seen and I've considered grabbing just because I hate seeing just Knives Out on the shelf, and I would love to see the sequel as well. For me, I'm a little more partial to the first movie, but I still really love the second one. I think as far as a murder mystery goes, they're both pretty much operating on the same level. But as a series and a continuation of films, I would love to be able to have the whole thing. So as they get ready to release, I think the third one this year, I'm really hoping that we might eventually get a Blu-ray release for it, as Netflix has collaborated with Criterion before, and then we got Hush, which they dropped the rights for and then sold over to Scream Factory. So I mean, there's definitely opportunities there if they're not doing it in-house to release it through another studio. So several of these movies and picks here are going to be Netflix releases, but A Knives Out mystery of The Glass Onion is definitely one that I would love to see. Next, after that, we have RRR. So actually, for this movie, speaking of bootlegs on the last one, I do have, this was the first bootleg I purchased for my collection for RRR. So I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorites of all time. So I picked up the Blu-ray for it just to be able to have some kind of representation of it on my shelf. Anytime I watch this movie, I do go and watch it on Netflix to still support the creators that are creating it, and at the same time kind of hopefully showing Netflix, hey, there's definitely an audience here to be able to put this out physically. So I know it's not a Netflix original movie, but they do have the international streaming rights for it, the way I understand it. So potentially it could come out through Netflix, or maybe it could come out through another studio as well. There's other Indian movies on this list that I want to talk about as well. So continuing, we have the Bahubali films. So this is Bahubali 1, the beginning, and then the second one I think is the end or something like that. I don't remember, but I really love both of these. They're actually by the same director. I forget his name, S.S. Rajamouli. I love his movies that I've seen of his so far. I've seen RRR, and obviously I've seen the Bahubali movies since. I've toyed with buying these through iTunes digitally because you can get them there for a reasonable price, but I'm always hesitant at the idea of just buying a movie digitally, because you know they can always pull that license for you and you can't have it anymore, and then you lost your money. So I'm really hoping we can continue to get more Indian films released in the US. I'm purely ignorant on this. Maybe it's just not something that India really does, of putting their movies out physically very often. But again, this is one of the biggest movies that India has ever released. And then the Bahubali films are really fantastic as well. So I'd love to see more when it comes to Indian stuff. And I'm happy that we can get, international streaming rights for stuff, but I'd love international physical releases of Blu-ray as well. So next, we also have some more actual Netflix original movies, and that's the Extraction films. I actually have bootlegs for these two. I won't take the time to pull these off the shelf, but they're also ones that anytime I rewatch them, I go and watch them on Netflix to support the creators and hopefully show that there's an audience there to put that out physically. So They're both really great action movies. I really enjoy both of these films. They really showcase some great stunt work throughout, and they're just really good, you know, straightforward action movies with a decent story to back it, as well as great stunt work. So these are ones I would also love to see get a physical release. Next, I believe this is another one that Netflix just has international streaming rights on, and that is for this Korean thriller that came out in 2020 called The Call. This is a really fantastic Korean thriller. It delves into a really cool blend of science fiction with a little bit of horror and thriller stuff in there as well. Follows this girl who moves into this house, and there's an old phone in there, and the phone, she can talk to someone who lived in the house, I think it was about 10 or 20 years prior, and just stuff goes from there. They find out that they're connected as far as the timeline of the present and the past goes, and certain things will impact the other person's life and timeline, and you can just imagine how crazy things would get with it being a Korean thriller. So a really fantastic movie. It was one of my favorite movies released in 2020, and one that I would love to see get a Blu-ray release. It's probably not one that's ever going to happen, but one I would love to see nonetheless. And then finally for this video, I want to give some love for Palm Springs. Palm Springs is one of my favorite rom-coms to come out of the past several years, so I would love to see it get a physical release. I know it does have a German Blu-ray, but I do not have a region-free Blu-ray player, so it's not worth me picking it up, at least at this time, unless I would have that kind of a Blu-ray player. So I'm really hoping we can get a physical release for this one. I mean, Hulu has done physical releases on some of their stuff. The one that most notably comes to mind is the Prey movie that they did, but that was since it was kind of a collaboration between Disney and Hulu with the whole 20th Century Fox kind of thing. But nonetheless, I mean, they own the rights for the movie, so they very well could just go ahead and put the Blu-ray release out, or at the very least, you know, sell those rights to another studio, a smaller one, to put it out. That would be great too. I just want to see this stuff get the love that it deserves on physical as well. So those are my picks of some movies that I would love to see get a physical release that are either streaming ones or ones that are international films that maybe Netflix or some other streaming service has the international rights for. I would love to hear some more of your picks and suggestions in the comments down below. Thank you again for the idea for this video. If it is one you want to see more of my picks on, I'd be happy to share more of those in a future video. Thank you for sticking around to the end. I will see you in the next one.